Protect Your Practice on Social Media. We have our guest today, Debbie Harris, and she's going to be our presenter. Debbie Harris is the president of DeweyComply.com, a performance intermedia LLC company. She has a master's degree in social media compliance and the law from Regis University, graduating summa cum laude. Debbie is also an attorney, consultant, and expert witness on social media compliance and the law, and has been published in Nevada Lawyer in November of 2012. Debbie is the subject matter expert speaker for iMatrix on practice-based social media, and her company, Performance Intermedia LLC, offers LinkedIn profile optimization and social media platform consulting with a focus on practice-based businesses. She was published in Moms in Business in December of 2012, writing about the importance of LinkedIn for professional women. She is also an active Rotarian with the Las Vegas Rotary. Debbie is the PR chair for Rotary District 5300, comprised of 69 Rotary clubs in Southern Nevada and South Central California. So we do want to say thank you for being here to present for our attendees on this topic. I know it's very important, and I'm going to go ahead and toss it on over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, and good morning or good afternoon for everyone that's on the call. We're going to talk today about practice-based professions, and social media, some indications on how to make it more effective, but also making sure that you're within compliance. You see up on the screen right now just an introduction for Mike as well and iMatrix. I've been working with them for a couple of years now. I have a tremendous amount of respect for what they can do to help practice-based professions as well. And we're going to get right into it. So Mike introduced me. Thank you very much, Mike. That was very nice. I do have a master's in social media compliance and the law. I think I'm the only person that has that master's because I had to write most of it. And moving on, this is my company, as Mike pointed out. And just a disclaimer, I am not an attorney. And nothing we discuss today should be considered legal guidance, but we will go through this and pick up the pointers in regard to compliance for social media and your practice. And we'll touch on a couple of other things that have to do with compliance as well. Our agenda, obviously the introduction, terms of service for social media platforms. We're going to review that very briefly. We are going to spend some time on HIPAA, on educating your patients, social media policy, which is very important, and then a little bit on hiring practices and social media. So one of the things that I'm sure you all know by now is that social media is not something that's just going to disappear. You know, for the last 5 years, it's been a question of, is this a fad? Is Facebook going to last? Is this going to happen? We don't know what's going to happen with it. We don't know if 5 years from now it will be Facebook or it will be XYZ. But one thing we do know, that this form of communication, this two-way communication between the products and the services that the consumer uses is not going to go away. So the idea of social media is here to stay, and it has fundamentally changed the way we communicate. The way we communicate with doctors, the way we communicate with lawyers, the way we communicate with products that we use, with companies that we buy those products from. That is not going to change. That two-way conversation will continue. So when you think of it that way, and you know how many times people are going to the computer and now to the mobile device, to the smartphone, to find the information that they need, they're no longer going to the book Yellow Pages. In fact, the last use that I had for the Yellow Pages was when my cats were kittens and they could not get into the litter box. I used it as a stepping stool for them. So we're not seeing people pick up the Yellow Pages very much anymore. It's very important to understand this form of communication and marketing so that you do not become irrelevant. And that's what we're going to talk about. It's a great tool for practices, and it should be integrated with all of your other marketing. Let's just take a look for a little bit, Facebook terms of service. I know that we all sign on to applications, we all sign on to platforms, and we see that little box that says, you know, by clicking here, you have agreed to our terms of service. And I'm sure that most people don't read it, but they go ahead and they click it. And Facebook tends to change their terms of service on a fairly frequent basis. One of the most important things about Facebook's terms of service is their statement to never share your login or your password with anyone. And we're going to take a look at that a little bit later. Facebook banners, just as an FYI, Facebook has changed this, I don't know how many times in the last year, what you could put on the business banner. Of course, if you're working with iMatrix, they'll take care of this for you and make sure that you are always in compliance with Facebook's terms of service. But now they are saying you can put your contact information on your banner, and they've removed the 20% text rule. What does that mean? They did have for a long time that on your Facebook page banner you could not have, the text could not be more than 20%. And again, this could change again tomorrow. That seems to be the nature of Facebook. Contests and sweepstakes, just to review, this is always important. Never do this on your Facebook page wall. You know, send us pictures of so-and-so, we're going to pick the best picture. And the winner will get XYZ. Cannot do it on the wall, have to do it on a third-party application. Facebook does not want any liability. Be careful with copyright and intellectual property. Don't steal pictures off the web. I see a lot of Facebook pages, people are taking pictures and then adding comments and things like that. You know, use canstockphoto.com. They're very inexpensive. You can set up an account and put some money on there. Or go to Google free photos. But be careful about intellectual property on the web. It's becoming more of an issue. And then Facebook offers. There are guidelines there. They have their new offers where you can actually do an offer right off the wall, but you do have to follow the Facebook guidelines, and that's where you can find them. The other majors, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google, just as a review, again with this login and password thing, which is becoming more of an issue, Twitter just wants to remind you not to, not to get involved with untrusted third parties who may promise you the world, like I'll get you 1 million Twitter followers tomorrow. LinkedIn asks you to keep your password secure and confidential. And Google, which of course is Google Plus, as well as YouTube, have guidelines about the unauthorized use of your password. I have to tell you that in reading all of Google's stuff, Google's a lot more concerned about Google than they are about your particular login and password. HIPAA and social media. And for practice-based professionals, we know that patient privacy is just as important on social media as it is anyplace else. And this is something that must be taken very seriously on social media by you and your staff, and we'll talk about that. We want to be careful about photographs. We want to have a consent form if we're going to put people's pictures and testimonials up on Facebook, and we'll address that. Minors, we never want to post pictures of minors on the internet or social media without explicit permission from a parent or guardian. So of course, if you have patients that are minors, you definitely want to have that, and that has nothing to do with HIPAA. That's your basic rule to protect children on the internet. Veterinarians, it's not a bad idea to get permission from the owners if you're taking pictures of your clients, which are the pets, your patients. Veterinarians are not under the guidelines of HIPAA, and we'll review that again in a moment, but there are certain other things that they need to pay attention to. Cell phones, we all have them. Most of us have a smartphone now. About 3/4 of the population has a smartphone. Smartphones are becoming more and more sophisticated, and frankly, pretty soon it seems they'll do everything but make us coffee in the morning. And this is where people are going now for their information. They're going to their cell phones. Now, in a practice situation, telling people, that they have to put their cell phones away or do whatever is all very well and good. I would encourage all of you to have signs up, and you may already have this, that simply says you will not talk to a patient when they are on their cell phone. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, it's rude. Obviously, if they're there, they're using your time, your staff's time, They should not be talking on their cell phone. But the other thing is it's a gray area whether there is an unauthorized third party present on the other end of that phone. And while I'm not suggesting that you be paranoid, you don't want to ever walk into that situation because people can hear on the other end of a cell phone what's being said. So if you are discussing something with a patient about their particular condition or medicine or whatever the case may be, and someone is on the other end of that phone and they hear you, that is a very unclear area about having an unauthorized third party present. Don't put yourself in that situation. It's not necessary. Veterinarians, as I mentioned, while you're not governed under HIPAA, some states do have animal information privacy rules. California is one of them. So check your state and just make sure that you're abiding whatever state laws there are, if there are any, in regarding to what you can and cannot do as far as privacy goes. And then remember to carry those over to social media. If we have veterinarians on the phone, on the call, for you, social media is really a dream because animals are adored by everybody. Pictures of cute dogs and cats, horses, whatever it is, guinea pigs, whatever it is you might be treating. There's endless photographs, and your clients will love to have their animals on social media. So it's very easy for veterinarians to get a good community going on social media because of those types of pictures. Descriptive posts on social media. So all of you are aware of the fact that you obviously can't put a person's name up on a Facebook post or a Google Plus post or Twitter or whatever it is that you're using. But you have to be careful. And we're going to talk here about how important it is to get your staff involved in your social media because they can really leverage your practice for you. But again, proper training is needed. And this example here is just that you have to remember that it's not just a patient's name. It's any type of description. So you never want to be descriptive on a post where someone, Joe's going to recognize his Aunt Sally, or a husband's going to recognize a wife, or whatever the case may be. You just have to be very careful now because social media, somebody might be sitting there thinking, oh, that's so-and-so. I know who that is. And now there is the potential there for violating HIPAA. So just be careful about what's going on when you're posting. Testimonials, though, awesome. Absolutely awesome. I work with a number of chiropractors. It's absolutely fabulous to get your patients to put testimonials on social media and for you to put it on your page. So a picture, they're feeling so much better, a quick picture and a quick comment. Sally feels great. She's been working with us, hasn't missed an appointment in 90 days, whatever the case may be. Have them sign off. If you don't already have a release on your intake form, just get a separate piece of paper and make it into a release. So as you see here, from time to time, we may want to post a photo or a testimonial of yours on the internet or social media. Would you consent to this? Something of that nature, and let them know. But it's great to get those testimonials. People love that. People feeling better, they want to share that. And most people are all over social media these days. Now, some people will say no, and that's perfectly fine. You still want to be careful. You want to be careful just when you're having, let's just say, a client appreciation evening, which I highly recommend, or you're doing an anniversary party or whatever it is, and you've got pictures and you've got people in the background. Be very careful, especially with minors. And you may have patients there who have not signed a release. You may have patients there who have said no on a release. Just be smart about all of this. Social media is an amazing tool to grow your practice. There is no question about it. But caution. Just use caution and be careful with photographs and videos because you'd never want to have somebody up there that didn't want to be up there. That's really the key. And of course, again, with photographs, you also don't want your practice looking ridiculous because of some crazy shot that somebody took at a party, a holiday party. We've all heard those stories. So just be cautious about what goes up on social media. Now, this is another thing with cell phones, and I know that you're all aware of this, but I reiterate it all the time. Be careful with what you're doing with cell phones. Emails should be encrypted, but I give an example here of how easy it is to forget about this sometimes. If you, the doctor, is out of the office and someone comes in with an emergency into a dental office, into a chiropractic office, whatever the case may be, and your staff calls you and you don't pick up the phone and they text you. Or you text them and say, I can't talk, what's up? And they send you back a text with what is going on. And that cell phone is not encrypted. You have violated HIPAA. And you want to be very careful with texting. Now, as you all know, there are ways to have encrypted cell phones, but be careful if they're not, because as you see here, and we all know, cell phones are lost and stolen every day. Please don't put yourself in a situation where you or your staff is violating patient privacy, PHI, because of a text. So again, just bear it in mind. It's just an FYI. Excuse me. I mentioned this already. This is extremely important for a couple of reasons. One, we know that social media is going to help build your practice. There's no question about that anymore. And if you work with a company like iMatrix, they will help you. Excuse me, folks. Here in the desert, it's very dry. I apologize. So it's very important to get your staff involved in what's going on with your social media. They will save you time. They are often the first touch and the last touch with your patient, with your client. Schedules can be set up so that this does not take a lot of time. People are getting a multiple voice from the practice. And of course, they are watchdogs for you as well, ambassadors and watchdogs for your practice. And they are often the ones asking people to complete the intake forms and to fill out a release, so they're also explaining that to them. And in many cases, they're the one who may be snapping a picture on the way out with a testimonial. So very, very important to train and to engage your staff in what's going on with social media. Mike, I think, why don't we ask that first poll question here?
Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this. Hopefully you guys can see that. How many of you have your staff involved in social media? So we'll just give it a little bit and see. A little over halfway there. Okay. Still going. All right, so we're about 85%. Looks like it's staying around there. And it seems about 23% say their staff is not involved.
Okay.
45% say staff is minimally involved. And 35% say staff is very involved. It looks like it kind of switched there a little bit. So 43 minimally, 35 are very, and about 22% say that they're not involved.
Great. Thank you, Mike, and thank you guys for answering that. So we're looking at a situation where most of the people are not yet fully utilizing their staff, and kudos out to those 35% or so that are fully engaging their staff in what's going on with their social media. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So obviously they need to know what's appropriate. And I use Facebook here because for the most part, for a practice involvement, Facebook is going to be where it's at. LinkedIn, which we're not going to go into in this presentation, would be much more on the side of the doctor or the owner of the practice. So we're looking at Facebook, and that's why it says Facebook here. Of course, it's also Google+, Twitter. And they'll be posting as the practice. because one of the important things is to continue to build up your awareness. And again, as I mentioned a moment ago, if you're working with iMatrix, they do have programs that will help supplement your posting. Now, studies have shown over the last few years that you simply can't 100% outsource your social media. It just doesn't work. There isn't that transparency. There isn't that intimacy with the practice. Your patients know better. And everything starts to sound like a PR soundbite. However, having a company like iMatrix supplementally assisting you with your posting is another story altogether. That can alleviate some of the time that you spend. It can bring value to the people that are looking at it, in other words, patients and potential patients. It can give your patient something to send out to someone else and say, hey, this was up on my, my dentist, my chiropractor's, my vet's page today, check it out. In the meantime, you are also supplementing that with your staff a few days a week. So very important. Don't overdo it. There is no reason to post on social media 10 times a day. In fact, it has the opposite effect. People get tired of seeing so much. They get inundated. We're all inundated by everything these days. Things coming in from our social media, from email, from the telephone, from advertisements. Don't overdo it. Once a day is sufficient, 5 or 6 days a week. And I put here this last point, posting on social media should not require more than 30 to 60 minutes total per day. That's your entire staff. That's a schedule where one person might be doing Monday, Wednesday, one person might be doing Tuesday, Thursday. Of course, if you also have iMatrix, they might be doing a couple of other days. So this is a total, and it may be less for you. But I've started to bump that up a little bit because there's also that learning curve in many cases. Remember, even if you have younger people working for you, they may be extremely tech savvy, but they may not understand what's appropriate for the practice and how to build the practice on social media and how to respond to people on social media. So there is that learning curve as well. So again, setting up a posting schedule. So you can set up an actual schedule for who's going to do what. And these are just some ideas of things that you can do. School is coming, back to school. As an idea, and some of you may already do this, I know a chiropractor here who does this, a back-to-school drive. And not just, obviously, for your patients, but for the community, the neighborhood. So if anybody's passing by our office and would like to drop off in our box some school supplies, we will be donating those to 2 local schools, 1 local grammar school, whatever the case may be. But it gets you involved. If you have a local paper, a local publication, that's something that can go out also as a press release. Certainly go out on your social media. Certainly go out on any email. Get the community involved. You're doing something for the community, and you're getting the community involved. Canned food drives. Used to be these were done always around Thanksgiving and Christmas. Unfortunately, right now, in many, many places, it's necessary to do those year-round. So absolutely, go ahead and do a canned food drive. Saturdays and Sundays, if you're open, if you're not, Facebook does allow you to pre-schedule on Facebook now, so a post could go up on Sunday. It's not necessary that you do that, but if your practice is open on Saturday, sure, go ahead and put a post up. So again, just some tips here for people that are posting on your page. Okay, tie your social media into email. Again, this is an area where iMatrix can help with newsletters, but social media doesn't stand alone. It's not you build it and they will come. It needs to be fully integrated with all of your other marketing. And that means if you are still doing direct mail, if you are doing email marketing, which I hope you are staying in touch with your patients, with your clients, important to integrate what's going on as well. Everything should, including your website, should all be integrated now, not standing alone. And of course, with email, with social media, with blogging, have some fun. Humor is very important. You know, it doesn't all have to be serious. It can be fun. Common sense, this is something that, I don't know, it seems that, and I don't want to say that this is any age group, but I know that people sometimes just simply don't think before they press the button. So again, this is all about training. Promoting how your staff promotes your practice. Training is extremely important, which is one of the things that we do for our clients. Common sense, courtesy, and respect. They don't go out of style. And to add to this also, grammar, spelling. I don't know how many times I've started to send an email back to somebody on my smartphone, and all of a sudden I look at it and I'm writing as if I were texting. And I realize I'm not texting, I'm writing an email, and I need to use full words, proper grammar, and so on. And I'm one of those crazy people that still uses a lot of that in a text message. But understandably, we use shortened words in a text, not appropriate in an email, not appropriate on social media. So again, all part of the training process. Here's one I get asked all the time. The majority of posts on social media are positive, no question about it. However, you can't please everybody all the time. And you will, or you may, on occasion, get a negative comment. What do you do with it? Don't delete it. You want to respond to it. You want to train your staff how to handle it. Now, you'll see the first point there. If the comment is completely off the wall, has nothing to do with your practice, is vulgar, is spam, get rid of it. Your profanity setting on your Facebook page should always be set to strong, and that's in your edit page. But if it's just completely crazy. But if it's not, if it's an actual someone who had an experience with your practice, with your office, that didn't go the way it could have gone or the way you would have liked it to go or they would have liked it to go, respond to them immediately. And that means that your staff is probably going to respond, unless it's something that they simply cannot handle, that they need to get you involved. Thank the person for bringing the issue to your attention, stating that you always want people to be satisfied with your office and that you're going to address it. Take the discussion offline at that point. Ask them to email you. Ask them to send a private message. Ask them to call. And again, this is all part of training your staff. You don't want to get into any kind of a pissing contest on social media with anybody, but you do want other people to see that the practice took the time and cared enough to respond to this person and to ask them to take it offline. And once it's resolved, you could even go back and say, thank you again for bringing this to our attention. I can assure you we've addressed this, and such a situation should not happen in the future. So that's great. You get tremendous PR when you do something like that, when you respond to a negative comment. And I'm just going to put a caveat out here that I'm sure you're all aware of. Religion and politics is absolutely off when it comes to your practice on social media. Don't get into it. Don't discuss it. Don't give an opinion on it. You're bound to piss off somebody, if not 50% of your patients or potential patients. And again, as I mentioned here, your staff can be trained to handle all of this. But in some cases, it may be a situation where they need to get you personally involved as soon as possible, where they may just want to say, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Dr. So-and-so will be in touch with you shortly. How would you like to be reached? Please send us a private message or an email or give us a call. So negative comments, you shouldn't see too many of them. If you do, respond to it properly. Your PR has just gone through the roof when other people see it. Help with posting, another one of the biggest issues. And again, as I said, iMatrix will help if you're working with them in one of their programs. But set up Google Alerts. They're free. Go into Google Alerts and just set up topics that you want information on. I have chiropractors, chiropractics in sports, chiropractic and weight loss, chiropractic and wellness, here, optometrists, dentists, veterinarians. You could put any topic you like. Remember that if you put the topic in quotes, it will pick that exact phrase off the web. If you don't, it'll just do it wherever it shows up. If you and your staff are doing this, don't ever post an article you haven't read because you just don't know what's in it. Make sure you put a comment when you post it. And I say here again, in the intellectual property and copyright situation, if there is no share button, because Google's going to bring you articles, blogs, whatever on the web. If there is absolutely no share button, don't take the article. If there's a share button for LinkedIn but none for Facebook, go ahead and grab the URL address and post it. But if there's nothing, don't post it. Don't risk any kind of a copyright or intellectual property situation. And then again, people ask me, if they're a direct local competitor, I wouldn't post it. I wouldn't post their blog or their article. But in most cases, you're going to pull up stuff from people that are in another state that don't affect your practice at all, but are giving good information. And absolutely go ahead and post that. YouTube is another great resource, and I reiterate what we just said. First of all, keep the videos under 2 minutes. 90 seconds and less is best if you're going to pull something off. Always put a comment, and that goes for an article, a picture, or a video. Don't just slap it up on your page. Put a comment with it like, hey, this is a great article. Kids are going back to school. This is a great article on why you should bring your kids in for a chiropractic check. Kids are going back to school. Let's get their dental care taken care of. Let's make sure that they're starting the year off right, whatever the case may be. And again, the competition situation. If you can create your own videos, go for it. Videos with, taking the camera and just having a client talk for 30 seconds. And a patient says, wow, you guys have been awesome. I'm off my painkillers or whatever the case is. Terrific. But YouTube is another great source for finding information to just go ahead and post. And you will find that share on YouTube videos unless they're private and you won't see them anyway. So usually that will not be an issue. Blogging, again, and this is another thing that iMatrix does have a program to help you with. Blogging is extremely important. Everybody talked about blogging 3-4 years ago, and then it kind of got swept under the rug a little bit with all of the social media hype. And now blogging, once again, is very much in vogue and is very important. They're short, 350 to 500 words. If you're writing, talk in your voice, what's going on in your field, what new research is being done, humor. Be careful again about your HIPAA if you're relating any kind of a patient story, even without a name. Get your blogs posted on social media. You can hire a ghostwriter. I recommend ghostwriters, a particular ghostwriter for many of my clients, but you should approve everything. And you should be giving input, okay? Because, again, this is going under your name, most likely on your website, your social media. So you want to make sure that you know what's going on. And you don't want to just say to somebody, okay, write this. And the other thing is please, please, please make sure that somebody is proofreading, again, for grammar and for spelling. I'll tell you guys, I was doing some research on the Department of Defense social media site the other day for a radio show, and they have HIPAA, HIPAA. So obviously somebody didn't proofread the Department of Defense social media site. Okay, so please make sure you're proofreading stuff. Accidents happen now and then. To me too. It gets called to my attention. But we see so much stuff these days that simply is not proofread. So we do want to look out for that. Educating your patients. Now here's another thing. Your patients are sitting in the waiting room. They're waiting for you. And somebody decides to whip out their smartphone, even though you've got a sign about not using cell phones. They don't care. And take a picture of the person sitting next to them who, I don't know, is curled up in some weird position, or their mouth is swollen out to here, or who knows. Absolutely not. Completely. Now, you can't control everybody. You can't control the public. But you can put signs up in your office, very nice signs, in select places that remind people to respect other people's privacy and to not take photographs in the office. Okay? And again here, do not post anything regarding someone else. Doesn't hurt to have that reminder shown that you have put that up. And you're just helping to educate your patients. So again, I encourage this, just like the we will not discuss anything with you while you're on your cell phone. And again, please remember to respect other people's privacy when you're in our office. Very important. It's just a reminder for people because they don't think. They just whip out these phones and, you know, and click, 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 and it's on Facebook. Hey, look what I saw today at my chiropractor's office. Okay? Social media policy. You should have one. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about this because it's extremely important right now. Mike, would you mind asking that second poll question, please?
Sure, no problem. Go ahead and get this launched. Okay, do you have a social media policy? Go ahead and give it about a minute, see if everyone can participate. Okay, looks pretty one-sided. About 80% have voted, but it looks like it's pretty lopsided. So about 27% said yes, they do, and 73% said no, they don't.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that, and
Sure.
Thank you all for responding. And that's okay. We're gonna talk about this. That's why we're talking about compliance. Because again, I'm going to say social media is necessary. It is an enormous tool to help grow your practice. But again, like anything, it has to be used the right way. So how do you get it to be used the right way? Here's the deal with social media policies. When the internet became really, really popular and businesses started using it, everybody went out and had an internet policy as part of their HR. It just became standard to have something in there that related to the use of the internet. And then email, the use of email. It is now really, really necessary that you add a page for social media. And let me explain what I'm talking about here. This is twofold. This is social media, and we train your staff on how it relates to what they do on the business page, on the practice page on social media, but it also relates to what they do on their personal pages, okay? Because we know that 3/4 of everybody has a Facebook page. We know that. And what does that mean here? What's happened is that many employers have put together social media policies that that violate our National Labor Relations Act. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I want to state here right off the bat, this applies to union and non-union employees. So if you're sitting there thinking, well, the National Labor Relations Board and National Labor Relations Act, those are for unions, no. They're looking very, very closely at non-union employees and what they're doing and what they're saying in social media policies. Social media policy is going to protect you. It's going to protect your employees. It's going to put everybody on the same page, okay? You don't want to create a policy that's overly broad, but you do want to have one. You want to make sure that everybody understands what's appropriate and what's not appropriate on the business page, okay? What you do need to be careful of, though, is that you do not infringe in any way on certain rights that an employee has. And this is important because if you don't have a social media policy, as many of you don't, you may think you can act upon these things. For example, employees talking about their salary on their personal Facebook page, talking about working conditions on their personal Facebook page. I use this example. An employee goes home, goes on the Facebook page and says, oh, I'm so glad to be done with work today. I don't know why they don't spend more money on air conditioning. The thermostat read 80 degrees today. Or there are wires hanging somewhere. Or the carpet is ripped. Or whatever the case may be. Or I don't get a break. Whatever it is. And another employee chimes in and says, oh my gosh, I know what you mean. I tripped over one of those wires yesterday. There's nothing you can do about this kind of speech, okay? And you want to understand that it makes a lot more sense to keep your employees happy, to get there. And getting employees involved in social media, by the way, is wonderful for keeping employees motivated and keeping them involved. But people are stepping into these areas where they think that they can control what employees are doing on their own pages, and you have to be very careful. If you have no policy, you have nothing to fall back on, okay? So again, you don't want to threaten sanctions against employees, which we just talked about, but that doesn't mean that employees can just go crazy and rant and rave about whatever they want on social media, and that's why a policy is so important. So you want to state, and again here, these kinds of things will not be tolerated, just like they're not tolerated in the workplace, and that's based on federal law. Okay? It's important for your employees to understand this and for you to have a policy for it. There's no retaliation policy for reporting inappropriate social media activity by somebody else in the office. Important to state that. Now, here's a biggie. You don't want them speaking as the practice on their personal social media. You don't want them giving opinion about what you do in your practice as the practice on their page. That's not appropriate, okay? And everybody will understand that once they're trained. And of course, all of this, posting comments, malicious, obscene, threatening, intimidating, and again, important here, race, sex, disability, religion, and sexual persuasion, okay, which is now protected by federal law. You simply want people to, and I talked about common sense and courtesy before, and I said that some people just, I don't know, they just don't, they think that this particular platform is different, you know? Yeah, it's like talking at the water cooler, but you know what? The world is listening. So it's not quite the same as the water cooler. And people need to understand, and I truly believe, regardless of the age, because I work with teenagers and I work with people in their 70s, this is a wonderful vehicle. If you understand it and you understand how to use it, and you understand the privacy issues with it, and you understand the permanency of it. So it's all about training. Now, you certainly can restrict your employees from using their personal social media during work hours and on company equipment. Now, I say here that the company equipment is probably a moot point because everybody's got a smartphone and or a tablet. People don't take smoking breaks now, they take social media breaks or Facebook breaks. If they have a 10-minute break and they want to take their phone and they want to post on social media, on Facebook, go for it. That's wonderful. You can tell them that they can't do it on the company computer. I don't know that I would do that. If they're involved in your social media as they should be and they've been trained and they understand what's compliant for HIPAA and they understand what is common sense and they understand about privacy, then if they have a break, okay, fine. They'll be happier if they could jump onto their Facebook page and just see if anything is going on. Okay? We want people to be happy, but we want them to understand how all of this works. And we want your employees to understand that what they post on their personal pages can affect them down the road. That's all part of the training. You know, be smart about this stuff. We're all working as a team. And of course, this doesn't apply so much in your industry, but in the financial services world, because now we know the SEC is allowing companies to use social media. FINRA, which regulates our financial advisors, has way opened up their social media. Banking has now opened up their compliance for social media. Obviously, or if you're a manufacturing company, this type of thing with trade secrets, although you have to be careful. Giant Foods just got themselves in trouble for forbidding employees to take photographs within the plant. And the Labor Relations Board said that's too restrictive. That might affect people's. What we're dealing with here is what's called Section 7 of our Labor Act, which is protected speech. Originally, it was for collective bargaining, so that employees could get together and discuss their work environment and make it better. And now it's being interpreted in the same way for social media, that the conversation around the water cooler or in the cafeteria also applies to social media on a personal Facebook page or Twitter or whatever. Remember, Twitter is public also. People can determine who's looking at their Facebook pages. So again, this is not about being paranoid. Just like you would have an internet policy, you would want to have a one-pager social media policy. Everybody's on board. Everybody feels good. And you're helping your employees, and you're helping your management, you're helping yourselves, the doctors you work with, to understand how this vehicle works. Hiring practices in social media. I'm not going to ask if you guys are doing this. A great many employers are. So are recruiters. So are headhunters. Be careful with looking at social media sites when you're thinking of hiring someone. They may have their pages public, so it's not as if you're sneaking in to become a friend, and you really don't want to do that. But just remember that you may come up with things on a Facebook page that you wouldn't have known on a resume or even an interview. For instance, someone's sexual persuasion, someone's religion, the fact that someone may have a disability, a prosthesis, a disease, something that isn't apparent. And if that person isn't hired, you have to be really, really careful about the protected classes and whether or not there's the potential for discrimination there. And you know what? It's best just, you're not necessarily going to find anything on social media that's really going to help you decide whether that person would be a good employee. And you may find that they're a little bit, how shall I say, not using some common sense on their Facebook page with some things they may post, but be aware of this, okay, when you're searching around. Another thing, just as an FYI, some employers are asking people to log into their social media on an interview for a potential employee, and some are asking their employers to give them their logins and passwords. 36 states have either enacted legislation or are in the process of enacting legislation to stop this. It is a violation of privacy. And colleges, public universities, many of the states are including them in these laws because they're doing this with students. So, you know, be smart about this. Do your interviewing the way you would do it. Stay away from the social media is what I would advise when you're doing this. And so, our conclusion, we know that social media is not an option. We know it's here to stay. If you want to remain relevant, if you want to be found, because social media has such a huge impact on your search engine optimization now for your website, and again, iMatrix can help with all of that as well. You want to get your staff involved. You want to have a schedule for posting, just like any marketing schedule you would have. You want to integrate it with everything else. You want to have a well-defined social media policy, and you want everybody to understand it and have it be communicated and have some fun. And again, I tell everybody, you know, it takes time and it takes patience. It will grow your practice. It isn't going away. Get on board now and get on board the right way, because it will be getting tougher to catch up. But be patient and be consistent. And I thank you. And Mike, let me know if you have any questions.
Sure. So we're going to open up to some questions. We're going to go ahead and see what we can do to answer those questions. So feel free in the question and answer module to ask your questions away, and we'll see if Debbie can answer those. And if not, we, of course, have the contact info here if you have any questions at a later date or not sure of any questions at the moment. You can feel free to contact Debbie at debbie@dowecomply.com. We can give her a call on her office or cell number, or feel free to give us a call at iMatrix, or feel free to drop us a line at iMatrix.com. So I probably should have mentioned this in the beginning. I do have a couple questions regarding this. We will have a copy, it won't be a copy of the presentation. It's actually going to be a recorded version of this webinar, which what we'll do is we will send an email out within a day or two to all the attendees and all those who have registered but didn't attend That way everyone is able to view this at a later date if they feel they need to. But if anyone has any questions regarding the webinar in general, feel free. I'll give it a minute or so.
I know it's a lot of information, so it's a lot to absorb.
Okay, looks like we got one. It's a decent question. If a client verbally approves posting their picture on social media, is that enough?
No, I would get it in writing. I would have just a 1 or 2 line release, just CYA. I mean, later on, if it comes to bite you in the butt, you've got that. And as I said, if you don't want to reprint all your intake forms, just take a separate Word document and make it your addendum release for the internet and social media.
Okay. Here's another one we have. Is it appropriate to take verbal short testimonials and post as an anonymous review?
You can do that. They're not as effective if they don't have a name. So a lot of times you'll see a first name with just a last name, first initial. But I would ask people want you to use their testimonials. I mean, they love that for the most part. So I'd ask. Now, they may not want you to list their last name. They may want you to put, Debbie H. or something like that, or just Debbie Las Vegas, or whatever. It's more effective. It has more of a punch if there is some kind of a name there. And I would still ask them, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. Now, here's a question I actually have gotten in previous webinars regarding something similar. Is there specific verbiage that you must contain in the release form? A lot of people usually don't know, what to put in the release form.
And you know what? If I would check with an attorney on that. I'm not an attorney. What I usually advise is just because this is not, you're not getting a release for modeling or for being in the movies or for something like that. You're merely asking people if they are okay with you posting their testimonial and or picture. And please say internet and social media, not one or the other. But to be absolutely clear, I would check with an attorney that you work with, to be absolutely clear.
Okay. All right. Now, I have one that's interesting. I know you touched up on. I know for California, definitely it's probably different, but it is for a veterinary hospital. We have an issue of employees posting photos of patients on their personal Facebook. Some of us feel that this is a violation of the owner's privacy. Others say because it is an animal, it is not a big deal, and if they don't put the owner or animal's name on the personal Facebook, that it doesn't matter. What is the best way to deal with this?
I would check with your state. That's a great, great question. They're all great questions. That one, I would check with your state. Now, if the employee is doing, and this is why a social media policy and training is so important. So everybody's on the same page. If an employee is doing it because, hey, we had this really cute puppy in today, we had this really cute kitten in today, and again, if you've got a release, that's why I said veterinarians may want to do the same thing. They may want to have a release, whether they're required to or not. And of course, in your case, the patient is the animal, the client is the owner, and obviously the client is the one signing the release. If they're doing it and you have a release from that person, they're not putting a name up, I don't really think they're violating privacy. But again, this is where an entire staff training is so important to discuss. Do we as a practice want to do that? Do we as a practice think that that's the best way to do it? Or would we rather put our efforts to getting that on our business practice page so that everybody can see these people and we can build up our community? Again, that's a discussion. I don't personally think they're violating any privacy with just the animal, but again, please, please, please check your state laws because they are different when it comes to veterinary practice.
Great. Yeah, that was a great question. Is it okay for a patient to ask questions about appointments on social media?
Sure. If they're, and here's the other patient education. You want your patients to learn not to divulge personal information on there. But again, you can't control the public. If they're just asking about, if they're asking about an appointment, and again, this is another great question, hey, I'd like to schedule an appointment, or I can't make my, and you have to decide, by the way, if that's going to be an acceptable form of communication. And this is, again, where training your staff comes in, because they'll be looking at these things, and you can make them admins on the page. Discussing whether or not you want your patients to be doing that via Facebook. You might. And in some cases, you can have scheduling on your Facebook page. So it depends. But yeah, if they want to go ahead and put something on there, go ahead. It's like I advise my attorneys, be careful, because people will think they have a client-attorney relationship. So you've got to put disclaimers. And you may want to have a disclaimer right on your Facebook page that says, please be cautious about what you're printing on here. It is open to the public. And then let them do what they want to do. They should never be discussing someone else, though, on there.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's part of education.
Now, this is actually a great, they're all great questions, but this is a great question as well, is should they remove pictures that were previously posted that don't comply with the rules based off of what they've learned today?
Well, you can go back and ask those clients, patients, if they're okay with the pictures being up there, and have them sign off on it. And they say, sure, no problem, and sign off on it. You may have a couple people that say, no, I didn't realize it was up there, or no, I prefer you to take it down. But I even over the, if you're going to see the patient, pick up the phone. Hey, when you come in, we'd love for you to sign off. We have a new release. We have a picture up there on social media, and get them to sign it. I have one chiropractor here. Every single time someone comes in, they pull out the file, and they have a separate addendum that people are signing off on, even patients that have been there for years. So to be on the safe side, you might want to take those pictures off until the release is signed.
Yes, I agree. Here we have a couple more questions, it looks like. If you have a business Facebook and a personal Facebook, should you accept friend requests on your personal page?
Oh, awesome question. Medical doctors are battling with this one too, in a big way. I would probably steer them to the business page, and what I usually tell my clients to do is to send a private message. Don't accept a friend request. Send that person a private message on their Facebook page that says, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I keep my personal Facebook page strictly for family. Whether you do or not is besides the point. For family and close friends or something, please connect with us on our business page. I think that's the smarter way to do it. So that's what I would do. I'd be very courteous, and I would thank them for reaching out, but I would suggest that they interact on the business page.
Okay. Yeah, that was a really good question.
Yeah, and that comes up all the time.
Yeah, I've actually had that question asked to me as well. Especially, if it's a client that has a really good relationship with, the chiropractor, the dentist, whatever it may be, sometimes they feel like the need to want to send that request. So that's actually really good info.
Well, yeah, because it might be your neighbor. I mean,
yeah.
It might be somebody you do have a personal relationship with, but again, and that's where you kind of have to draw the, you kind of have to decide. And you've been friends with this person for 30 years, and now they're a patient. Okay, well, but in general, I would move people over to the business page.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It looks like last two questions have popped in here. When patients make a review on Google Local that they write and enter themselves, must they have a release form for that?
No. If they're putting their reviews up, that's totally fine. Just like if they're putting the testimonials up on the Facebook page. That's great. That's awesome. You want to encourage
That's
them
their
to
consent,
do that.
yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. You want to encourage them to do that. They're consenting to Google to post that, so you don't have to worry about that.
Awesome. Well, that's work for you, too. So, okay, and last question. If a client posts a comment on their personal page and an employee as themselves, not as a business, posts another comment revealing which office, doctor, etc. that the client saw or what the problem was, is that a violation?
Yeah, you got a problem there. That's a great question. That's where the training comes in, because who knows who's seeing that? And that client, that patient client, depending on the vernacular you use in your practice, may not want everybody connected to that staff member to know that they were in your office. This is where training comes in.
Great.
So
Yeah, I know
great,
that's
great question.
definitely, yeah, definitely. I know that's a big issue a lot of times. People think because they're personal in their business that they're not tied in, but they still are to a point. So you definitely want to watch out. Um, I think this next question, actually, this last one just popped in. I think it's actually tied into the one we answered previously. Should employees accept friend requests from patients?
I'm gonna go with my gut here and say no. I'm gonna say the same thing because here's the potential. The previous question is the potential there for an issue. What I'm going to say is the employee also should be trained to send that private message. And again, this is all in educating your clients. If you're sending out a newsletter, you can put this into the information on the back of the Facebook page. Hey, everybody, we'd love for you to connect with us. Please remember to be courteous. Please remember not to discuss other people's conditions. And, it would really probably make sense not to discuss too much of your own personal information, that kind of stuff. And I would encourage the staff to move them over. You want everybody on the business, the practice page. Because little contact you can have on the personal pages means you're going to have more control. And you don't stand the risk of what the other question was of somebody divulging information that really should not be divulged on social media.
Great. Yeah, no, these are really great questions. Thank you, guys. It looks like that was the last question. Again, if you guys have any questions that you think of down the line, feel free to go ahead and contact Debbie. You can reach her at debbie@deweycomply.com. Again, her phone number for the office and cell phone number are both listed there, as well as iMatrix.com or 1-800-iMatrix or 462-8749. Again, we'll send this presentation. It is recorded. We'll send it in an email to all that had attended, and anyone that has maybe come in a little bit later, you will be able to view the full presentation via video, which we'll send out again to all those who have attended and all those who have registered but didn't attend. So yeah, it looks like that's about it. If again, I don't know if you have any extra questions that you get a lot of, Debbie, but I do want to say thank you for presenting. It's always a pleasure having you.
Oh, no, thank you. And no, these questions were awesome. And again, this stuff changes by the nanosecond. So it's hard to keep up with it. You guys are keeping up with your practice, keeping up with your patients, keeping up with your staff. That's why we're here. And it's just, as I said, this is an enormous tool. And I congratulate you for using it and for learning how to use it. It's just a question, like anything, of using it properly.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for attending today's webinar, again, on how to protect your practice on social media. We will see you guys soon, and thanks again.